For a long period of time, I have set my meaning of life as avoiding pain. So I am paying attention to my own health. One factor I identified is air quality. The literature has already established that air pollution leads to loss of life expectancy more than all forms of violence added together, and tobacco smoking. Air pollution is a killer. And those bastards polluting the air, including smokers and drivers, are all killers. They are all killing me without legal consequences. PM2.5 is of a particular concern because of its ubiquity, invisibility, and long-term health effects. Several years ago, I reviewed the WHO guideline and other literatures and revised that PM2.5 can enter the bloodstream, cardiopulmonary system, nervous system, liver, kidneys, and even the fetus, as well as generating immune responses. And these are associated with all kinds of diseases, including but not limited to lung and heart diseases, Alzheimer's disease, allergy, and autoimmune diseases. Of course, the effects are likely related to the exposure dose. The WHO guideline concludes that annual PM2.5 level of smaller than 5 microgram per cubic meter is probably safe. However, as the guideline is for policymaking at the nationwide level, the number does not directly translate into personal exposure. Some people go out more, some stay at home exclusively. The exposures are likely different. The guideline was set conservatively so that the recommended level is likely not harmful to the whole population, including those going out a lot. So my assumption is that annual PM2.5 exposure of smaller than 5 microgram per cubic meter is probably safe. And this is the main point I want to talk about today. If I am going to put on a mask to limit my PM2.5 exposure outdoors when it is greater than 5, when should I take precaution at home too? How does the average residential indoor PM2.5 level correlate with the outdoor one? Of course, it depends on the ventilation, size, and sources of PM2.5 inside the apartment. So the best strategy is probably to acquire a reliable and accurate PM2.5 detection system and generate my own data. But because it can be very hard or expensive to acquire, set up, and verify the accuracy of such a system, consulting the literature of real-world data is the first step. According to a study conducted in the US covering a wide range of households and climates, on average, outdoor PM2.5 is around 6 and the indoor one is around 3. So indoor is roughly half the outdoor. But because there are roughly 2 populations of PM2.5 here, one of outdoor origin and the other of indoor, in order to estimate the indoor PM2.5 level, we need to ask how much PM2.5 from outdoor gets into the indoor, which is termed infiltration factor. And the answer here is about 1/4. So when outdoor PM2.5 is around 6, around 1.5 is getting indoor, and among the indoor PM2.5, outdoor versus indoor origin is around half and half at this particular level. So now we can estimate the indoor PM2.5 level, assuming that the indoor source is rather constant based on living habits and daily activities such as cooking. Suppose it's 10 outdoor today, 2.5 will infiltrate into my house, adding the 1.5 indoor source, it is 4 indoor. And after doing some algebra, the indoor PM2.5 level will exceed 5 microgram per cubic meter when the outdoor is greater than 14. Of course, the infiltration factor depends on the ventilation. According to the study, when it was cold and people didn't open windows, the infiltration factor could be as low as 0.1. I never open windows, but I use a ventilating range hood every day during cooking. So my conservative guess here is that on average, my infiltration factor is around 0.2. In this case, I may need to take precautions at home when the outdoor PM2.5 is greater than 17.5 microgram per cubic meter if I want to keep my exposure lower than 5 microgram per cubic meter at any given time. Though because the number 5 in the guideline is the annual average, and it may be higher than 17.5 on some days, but lower than 1 on the others. Ultimately, the annual average might still be lower than 5. Of course, taking precautions is a good idea when the measures are actually effective. But another approach may be just to live in a place with lower than 17.5 annually and put on a mask outdoor, especially when it's higher than 5. Another consideration is that not all PM2.5 are equal. PM2.5 of sodium chloride and calcium ions from the sea is likely harmless. That of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, heterocyclic aromatic amines, HCAs, and oil mist from cooking likely has different effects and tolerability from that of toxic heavy metals and diesel particles from road dust, and not to mention the PM2.5 of microorganisms, spores, and pollens. The dose, profile, and tolerability of the PM2.5 from a forest, wildfire, and a volcano can also be very different. It is possible that PM2.5 from cooking congee is less harmful than that from frying fish and chips, and in turn less harmful than that from a tunnel with heavy traffic. Therefore, the exact threshold of harmful exposure level of PM2.5 is hard, if not impossible, to be determined. But still, I need to be aware of it and have made a guideline for myself according to the accessible data of general PM2.5 level.